Oh, this is Emotional Oranges. I'm Rory. I don't want to do the intro like that.
Hello.
We put a title card before you saw it. We're leaving this as is. What is your backstory? What is your origin? Most people really don't know much about you guys. You guys have kind of kept everything somewhat a secret to a degree. It's just they know the music. I don't even know both of y'all entire backstory. Like, I'm actually here to learn. And V, outside of looking at cans of orange juice, where does this begin?
Well, my mother is Russian, and my dad is black.
Okay. Do you know how your parents met?
I do. They met, my dad was a conductor of classical music, which is pretty rare for a black man to be a classical conductor. You never see that. And my mother played the clarinet, and they met doing the Nutcracker in Paris. Not a pause of a Nutcracker.
No, it wouldn't be a pause.
It could be a pause.
That's terrible.
But no, they met doing that show, that ballet.
Okay. And how many more years does V pop up in this scenario?
After they met? Pretty soon after.
Okay. Band geeks are always pretty sexually
But
active.
then they separated pretty quickly after as well. So I grew up with a single mom.
Okay. And this is not in Paris. This is where?
This was in New York.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was that experience like?
Growing up in New York was an experience.
So where was your mother and where was your father in New York?
So my dad lived on 103rd, and my mother, first we lived on 80th Street, then we moved to 46th Street, then we moved to 43rd Street, and then I lived with family in the Bronx for a couple of years, 229th Street. And so I moved around a lot, I would say, all throughout New York. But
what was growing up in Times Square like? Because that must have been an interesting experience, because Times Square kind of shifted from being an insane place to a tourist place.
yeah, it was
Pretty
like
fucking
a lot of
quickly, too.
crackheads. When I was actually really little, the building we lived in, homeless people would break in all the time and sleep in there. And my mom would collect all the crack files and give it to the landlord, like, yo, you gotta handle this because my kid is like running around these hallways. But then we moved to Manhattan Plaza, which is in Hell's Kitchen as well, artist housing. And that's when the city started changing, which it became Disneyland pretty much after that.
For the most part. Crack might have been better. Crack, M&M store. I might go with crack.
Yeah. I liked growing up in Times Square. It was magical for me. I would take the subway every day to school. I would walk by all those billboards and be like, I'm gonna be up there. I worked at Bubblegum Shrimp. I worked at TGI Fridays. I actually started off working at the TGI Fridays that shut down. I was a dishwasher there because I was 15 and I wasn't allowed to work upstairs. So my mom knew the manager and they basically hired me so I could make some money. So I was dishwashing with the hairnet and the gloves. And I was like, I'm gonna be on a billboard, and everyone would make fun of me.
Did you want to lean towards Broadway more because you were literally facing it when you walked out of your building?
Yeah, I grew up wanting to do Broadway more than anything until I started auditioning and realizing I was in a room full of girls who all looked like me. And I felt like replaceable. And that's just not the energy I ever want to carry.
And did that maybe switch when you were doing maybe weekends in the Bronx and then coming back to Times Square? How did that affect music and your perspective as far as the future when it came to your art?
Well, I realized I wanted to create my art and I wanted to really express myself. And with theater, you're just a character. You come into somebody else's vision and you don't really have your own voice. You're their voice in that character.
Yeah.
And then as soon as you leave the show, another girl comes in who looks just like you and continues the trend. But I knew that if I could create something and tell my story, that I would be irreplaceable.
That's dope. Yeah, Broadway's interesting in that way of what you can do with it. Like, you could rehearse Death of a Salesman right now if you wanted to. Like, it's not something that you're really creating. You're just recreating it and speaking the lines again.
Exactly.
You can't really make it your own in that capacity. All right, so fast forward, high school. Where'd you go to high school?
LaGuardia.
I know, I just wanted to ask. LaGuardia is like the fame school. People don't know what that is.
Yeah.
It's where they took that. So when you auditioned to get in LaGuardia, what was your initial thing?
You got to kick some game to us.
Nicki Minaj went there.
Yep.
girl I lost my virginity to. Cut
Wait,
that.
what? The fuck?
Azalea Banks.
Azalea Banks, shout out to Azalea.
She's hard.
Azalea's
She's crazy.
dope.
Jennifer
She's hard.
Aniston.
Wow.
Michael Che went to LaGuardia. There's a very, very lengthy list. And a lot of like A-list actors and musicians, kids go there as
And
well.
my dad went to Juilliard.
Across the street.
Yeah.
Shit.
So, all right, going into LaGuardia, what is your idea as far as music and what you want to do?
So the way Manhattan and New York works is in zones.
Mm-hmm.
So my zone school was actually Brandeis. I didn't want to go to Brandeis. I knew if I went to Brandeis that I wouldn't enjoy my 4 years there.
Yeah.
So I basically auditioned for dance, piano, acting, and vocal because I needed to get into that school. And at the time, I was actually more a dancer.
Okay.
And when I got in on all of them, I decided to do voice because that was my least strong suit. And I wanted to perfect that part of me, so I got in on vocal. And that's when I was meeting some of the most incredible vocalists ever, and it inspired me even more to be an artist because I realized I could express myself even more singing.
Are you making music at this point yet, or just
No, I'm
going
only
through the
doing
courses?
theater. Yeah, and just going through chorus and learning how my voice worked.
What are you listening to at that time, though? I know you're doing more of the traditional stuff at LaGuardia, but what are
Yeah,
you
yeah,
listening
yeah.
to when you get home or when you're in the Bronx or just on the way to school? What's in your headphones?
Biggie.
Okay.
Beyonce. Beyonce was a huge influence for me. Just her work ethic alone reminded me of theater. We have 17-hour rehearsal days
Yeah.
where we're rehearsing one lunch break, maybe a dinner break, and it's just like this. And I think I carried that through. I mean, he knows how we rehearse and like how hard we work.
I was gonna say, it sounds like every time we get into rehearsal.
Yeah, so Beyonce was a huge influence on me. Michael Jackson was a huge influence for me, and Bob Marley. Bob Marley was my favorite artist of all time.
Okay. What's playing in the house? What's playing on your dad's side? What's playing on your mom's side?
Classical, Beethoven, Bach, Mozart, Chopin.
Because your dad also has an extensive history on another side that is outside of music and more of a movement, more or
yeah.
less, if there's something you want to get into on that side, as far as what your dad may have been doing prior to you coming and continuing to do so.
Well, yeah, my dad worked with a lot of kids in Harlem. He worked with a lot of housing projects. He was really big with the Black community. And he was a part of the NAACP. He was a coach there for 25 years. And yeah, he was a big voice for them, especially through classical music. He wanted to show kids that they didn't have to just do hip hop or the traditional urban lanes that everyone believes that culture has to follow. He taught piano, he taught trumpet, he made sure that kids were well versed in music, including myself. There was always classical music playing in my house 24/7. 24/7. And like as soon as you woke up, my mom had classical. If I went to visit my dad, classical music was playing.
Okay. And what are your friends listening to around that time?
It's the most ratchet things. Like
It was a well-balanced breakfast.
oh yeah. Yeah, I would say I have a really eclectic taste in music because of my upbringing and my friends, because they were all like family to me as well.
Okay. All right. We can pause at high school for now and get into this nasty California shit over here.
What the fuck you talking about?
Unbiased.
Oh, this is
All right,
terrible. I'm going
let's-
into some hater shit. All right, cool. Let me just.
You're outnumbered. It's okay. So where does it begin with you?
I mean, shit. The first thing I remember is the Venice Boardwalk with two very eclectic, forward-thinking immigrants. You know,
What country were your parents from?
my parents are both from Iran.
When did they come over to America?
They came to America after the Iranian Revolution. They bounced from Turkey to France to Germany to LA. And
Was there a reason they chose that path?
after you disperse from a country that you're rebelling against, that you don't see eye to eye with, typically and especially in my dad's case, his first wife was executed, his brother was executed. He hasn't been back in 30 some odd years, but ultimately they made a decision to fight for their freedom. Mm-hmm. So he knew people, specifically at that point, I think my uncle was in LA and he was on some real hippie shit. This is like, I gotta imagine the 80s, and they're coming out of the hippie revolution, and he's just like, yo, this is Venice Beach,
yeah,
right, in the late 80s, early 90s, which is a
fucking
very
paradise.
For an artist, absolutely. Yeah. For Orlando, maybe not so much,
yeah.
But
so they make it to Venice, obviously trying to start a family in a much better environment than
right.
what was going on in the conflict over there at the time. What was your earliest memory of your parents?
It was actually very loving. It's like, I joke around with my friends to this day about like the whole mattress on the floor shit, but like I think a lot of us, the immigrant first generation Americans relate to it because it's not something that's I don't look back on it in negativity. It's like,
yeah.
I remember them in their, late 20s, early 30s, being in love on the mattress in this one bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's beautiful.
Yeah, Venice Beach, artistic integrity, fighting for, at the time, something that the collective believed in. Mm. That's something that I feel like I grew up with, and I have no reservations about it. I feel, I still, in a weird way, they've been divorced for my entire life, but I still feel like they're together.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, share that and built on that. No, that's
right.
That's amazing. So being a first generation kid, because I grew up around a lot of first generation kids that, at home they're still with the traditions of their households and they have to stick to that entire thing. When they walk outside, they're an American kid and they're kind of around a bunch of other American kids that may not be first generation that are allowed to watch TV, are allowed to listen to what's going on the radio, are allowed to do all this other stuff, and they kind of have to hide it from when they get home to their traditional shit.
Wow. You couldn't be more accurate. This is fucking nuts thinking back on the shit, but like for my entire life, I would say I didn't have cable TV, but not necessarily because of the fact that maybe we couldn't afford it at certain points, but because they believed in reading and music and practice more than they did at the time, TV, which looking back, I mean, some of the most classic shit that I'm inspired by was on television, and was film, and it was music, in the 2000s and late 90s. So there's no shame on, I wish I had some access to that shit early on.
Yeah, were they very musically inclined or focused on music at all, as obviously from their culture? Was that something that was in your household from the beginning?
Music, maybe not so much, but my dad is an absolutely brilliant writer, and my mom in her own right is a great artist. She always took me to, I haven't thought about this shit in ages. We used to go downtown. I lived on the west side, obviously, so the trek to downtown is 40, 50 minutes, on the Volkswagen and the Volvo. And she used to take me to Colborne School of Arts, and we used to do the painting shit. And then after that, 2 hours later was the piano course. And by the way, by no stretch am I good at these things, but I think as you're mentioning them, I'm thinking back and I'm like, I get why I care about these things. I know people that are around me, like Brando and obviously like V and like Mitch and like Dan that are so great at what they do. I don't know that I would know that they're great at what they do without maybe my mom taking me to some of these classes.
Yeah, it was embedded
You are
in
a
your
painter.
DNA.
You're just a different kind of painter.
Yeah, no, there's definitely other ways.
You're painting with music. It's the same thing, same muscle.
Oh, Rory, you got me on some shit. What the fuck is this, bro?
I mean, I'm just asking.
Fucking, this is what a great interview feels like?
I don't even
Where's your
know
cup?
this much
Yeah.
about you on the earlier side.
Yeah, I haven't talked about this. I don't even know if anyone knows this about me.
I've never heard this stuff about you. This is awesome.
Thank you.
Commercial break.
Sorry, friends.
All right, so let's fast forward high school. High school at this time, outside of your house, what are you listening to? What's happening in California at that time? What is in your CD player? What are you and your friends listening to? What's inspiring you? What's pushing you towards music at that time?
I'm not trying to give y'all no props, but you know, it's we're going back and learning what It Was Written in Illmatic and Reasonable Doubt in Volume 1 and all these classic New York projects are. Fuck y'all. But at the end of the day, you know, I grew up on East Coast rap and West Coast funk.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome.
you know, I think when you fast forward time, I go back and I discover The Chronic and I discover, you know, Doggy Style and all these things. But really in my youth, in the mid 2000s, I'm listening to, damn bro, fuck. This is, it's a bunch of Hov, it's a bunch of Kanye, a bunch of Nas. And she talks about classical music. Absolutely. I mean, Chopin, like you listen to like one of the greatest, why we love great chord progressions is because of Bach and because of Chopin and because of Beethoven.
Yeah.
And why we care about that. And you put these kind of like, you try to simplify everything in pop music and it's always this 4-chord progression bullshit. And it's always as simple, you know, everyone can digest. But for us, I think some of what she mentioned is so accurate. Like we have a taste for the abstract, probably because of what we were both listening to growing up. And hearing her say this is so ill because we've never actually talked about it.
Ever. But I think we're a lot alike.
And it's interesting that both of you guys I don't want to put you in a box as R&B artists per se.
Right.
But it's funny, you brought up Big right away, and then you just started naming a bunch of rappers as R&B artists growing up.
Right.
And I think it does, if you get into the West Coast loves and a lot of the drum patterns that are specifically on Volume 1 are rap drum patterns. It is all kind of hip hop when it comes down to that. So it is interesting that you guys brought up that that's more of what you were listening to. On an R&B tip though, in that mid 2000s era, what was going on between both of y'all as far as what you were listening to?
Brandy.
I'm with you.
It's a bunch of the Basement shit, bro. It's Genuine, it's Missy, it's Static. I mean, yo, the list goes on and on. Aaliyah, Tim, like.
Cisco.
Listen, a Drew Hill album?
Crazy. We reference that shit many a time.
Who wants to see Drew Hill in Versus? Because sign me up.
It's taking all L's, but I'm down to watch it.
All right, so let's fast forward to after high school. At this point, you guys starting to really think you want to be artists, like real artists, not like, hey, I want to kind of make music with my friends, or just this is going to be the rest of my life. Does that happen around that time?
Yeah.
End of high school?
In high school.
In high school, okay. So where does that journey begin from the I want to be an artist phase for you, V?
Well, I actually started off backup dancing for a couple artists. And just watching their journeys, seeing some of my homeboys go from not knowing how to write a check to selling out arenas and realizing that it was possible. I think that's what broke it for me. It's just realizing it was possible. Knowing that even though I didn't have money, even though I was selling jerseys on eBay and sneakers, that I could really do it.
Remember the first song that you wrote and recorded?
Yeah, I do. It was called What's the Deal?
Oh, hell no. We're not doing that today.
I want to know what's the deal.
Very Brandy.
I want to know if this thing is real.
Very Brandy.
Let me know how you feel. Let me know what's the deal.
It's very Aaliyah.
First of all,
what are you talking
nobody
about?
used that because we might use it.
Yeah, right. Hold that.
Yeah, but I think for me it was just seeing people I knew really well that came from where I came from start making it and starting to express themselves with music. I remember being in New York with my dance crew, which were all still friends actually, and my best friend at the time, Mikey, he was like, yo, you need to go to LA. Like, you need to get out of here and you just need to figure it out. So I think I had $1,000 and that's it. And I moved to North Hollywood and I slept on a couple couches for 6 months until I got a job at Saddle Ranch.
It's my favorite place on earth.
It's just my
I'm
least
serious.
favorite place on
I love
earth. I
Southern
got
Ranch.
fired.
Don't gas that up.
I got fired from that place.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
I love Southern Ranch.
But yeah, so I just came out here and I decided I'm gonna just figure it out. And at one point I had 6 jobs.
There's no shame in that.
Well, I mean, I know both you guys had solo careers prior to the Emotional Oranges thing happening. What was that like doing the solo shit? What was breaks? What was failures? What was light at the end of the tunnel? And then the light at the end of the tunnel was just a train.
Wow.
Like, which run through
That's
that's
crazy
so,
visual.
bar.
like,
Wow.
I stole it from Fonte.
Shout out to Fonte.
What's that solo struggling artist story really like? Because I mean, so many people are currently going through it, have gone through it, have been successful, have been failures at it as well. I know both of you have been through that. What were more of the trial tribulations in your 20s trying to get through that entire thing with no money in LA?
Let's just talk about Fonte for a second. So, no, for real. Foreign Exchange is one of my biggest inspirations.
One of my favorite groups ever.
And not so long ago, in the same exact lifetime, I opened up for Ninth.
Okay.
And this is like, you know, rap was popping. And it's so funny hearing you, you know, big her up because I was one of the artists that went on right before her in the city, in a city where, you know, I probably have a lot more pull than she does. And I got to see how it was actually done. And I mean, she could talk much more about this than I can, but the amount of times that I perform for people that have no idea who I am or what this music is, like eons before Emotional Oranges was even an idea.
Yeah.
I think that speaks a lot to what this means and why it's so important and why I latch onto it with such importance is just because, like, it isn't necessarily the music, it's the movement. And it's so hopeful. It's like, you know, gives everybody the opportunity, as long as you're great, as long as you care about being great, as long as that bar and that you see the pedestal the same way, and you hold that integrity to your art, you can get to where you want to get.
Facts.
You know, so, and that journey kind of started with meeting her. My best friend introduced us, and they were, you know, deeply in love at the time. And this is someone that I've known for my entire life. So much love to Ray. And he even told me straight up, he's just like, you know, this is the yin to your yang. You know, you have all these ideas and these songs that you feel like maybe you can't bring to life, but there's someone else on the other side here that can write those lyrics with you and give you a different idea of perspective and bring them to life on the stage, you know, right? It sounds hella corny, but, you know, otherwise you're just like a bunch of really great songs that nobody ever gets to see.
Yeah.
You know, so.
And V, where's your head at during this, I guess, catalyst to the two of you meeting? Where's your head at as far as being a solo act? Where's your head at in even entertaining, being in a group? Where are you even with caring about being an artist?
Yeah, I mean, I met Ray. I was working at a bar, and fast forward, he tells me about A, and he tells me he just wants me to get in front of him and tell him my story and see maybe if there was some way we could work together. Because I think he was trying to plant seeds on both ends, knowing that we both really needed to just be in the same flower pot. So I remember actually going to meet A, and he broke it down. He's like, you don't have a sound, you don't have views, you don't have a following, you need to do the work. And in a month I had 30 songs. And I came back to him. I was like, okay, here's my sound. I've been performing at every gay club from San Francisco to LA for 15 to 20 people a night in booty shorts and high boots because it works. And what
Well, why does it work?
well, I would wear regular clothes and nobody would give a fuck. And then I throw on some ass booty shorts and high hooker boots, and all of a sudden, I'm getting followers and people are coming to my shows and people are interested. It works. Now I can wear Jordans.
It's weird how that reverses.
Weird how that works.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically, I was trying to figure it out. I had a team of people that were telling me that things were coming, and they weren't coming.
Yeah. And are you contractually tied to anything? Because I feel like what a lot of music fans don't realize, and especially with social media, when they'll tweet their favorite artist or their up-and-coming artist, like, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? I legally can't do anything. Yeah, I want the same thing that my fans want. I just can't do it. Are you tied to anything where maybe working with A or working with anyone else you physically cannot do because
Not at that point.
you're breaking your contract?
Not
Okay.
at that point. I think at that point I was a free agent, just trying to figure it out. But I was putting in the work. I was contracted to myself.
Yeah.
I knew that I had moved out to LA and I had a lot to prove because I was not proving shit. Telling my mom would be hitting me up like, "What's up? I haven't seen you in 2 Christmases. What are you doing out there?" So I had a lot of pressure, but I knew that I really wanted this, and I knew that A had a lot of knowledge when it came to just making something happen, and I knew that I could put in the work to allow his vision to come to life. Our first session that we ever had together was in his roommate's room, and after like 2 cocktails and a couple loops, we wrote a song in 30 minutes. And I think we both looked at each other like, wow, that's a first. I've never had a 30-minute session.
Is the group an idea at this point, or is it more of a writing type of thing? Like, let's put together some great reference records and maybe we'll sell these together. Maybe this is a new stream of income. Wow, I want to work on my solo shit. We could write this together and sell it. Is that where this started, or are we thinking emotional oranges at that point?
I had done the concept of what I thought was like, let me try to sell records and produce records for a couple of years under that name. That was just like smoking way too much fucking West Coast pot and trying to sell shit. That doesn't work. You know, and we had a song out even as Emotional Oranges, which was initially a really abstract idea of something that I'm so glad has developed and evolved into something that I really can stand behind now. You know, Motion was out, and V was looking at me, you know, when are we getting in? And she talked about that first session. I don't know, I think she's actually being quite humble with it, because that was 30 minutes, but really that's a song that ended up on Volume 1. That was probably 10, 15 minutes on the top line. I mean, she's absolutely brilliant with these top lines.
And which record was this?
This is called Unless You're Drowning. And this is about somebody we know very, very well, you know? And looking back, I have perspective now on Volume 1. That's 2 years ago. It feels like yesterday, but
Well,
right, it's 2 years ago. And these are records that are, a lot of records that are about someone I'm very, very close with.
at this point, Ray and I would say Stanley were the ones telling me, yo, you need to really get in with A and try to make more music and figure out what Emotional Oranges can become. But everyone else I had been working with was trying to push me to be solo, which I understand. You know, everybody puts in work and they invest in you as an artist and they want to see you win. But it was rough because I felt kind of torn. But I knew that there was something really beautiful about this Emotional Oranges project and how I could just go in a room and write a song with him in 30 minutes, not beat my head against a wall and beat my ass in a club after working 8 hours at a bar to perform at a bar for 15 people, showing my ass. Like, there's something there where, you know, I'll never forget our first show in Toronto where I didn't think anyone was gonna come.
It's a great show.
And it was sold out. And they knew every word.
Yeah, it was there.
And I'm also performing at places where I'm on top of the bar just singing my face off and no one is even giving a fuck. And there was something just so beautiful about what we were creating, and to have somebody.
So you felt like with Emotional Oranges, you could actually be yourself, while the solo career with the group of people you're working with were trying to create this solo female artist that maybe wasn't really who you wanted to be at your core. And EO just kind of let you, like, let me just go be myself and throw some Jordans on and make the music I want to actually make and be the person that I want to be.
Yeah, I have a lot of layers. I think that there's definitely a side of me that loved performing the stuff that I was performing as well. I added it to our show. I mean, it's a huge part of who I am. I'm a performer at heart.
An amazing one.
But I think...
The best.
Thank you. But I think that there was just this pull that was happening to me internally and spiritually, where I felt I couldn't be completely authentic. I couldn't do a couple things because they didn't line up with what the industry had put in front of me, you know, as a female, you know. Nah, don't be too ethnic. You know, we want straight hair. We want you to gravitate more towards this side. And nah, don't show these things. Show these things. This is what the industry wants to see. But I'm like, but I want to let my hair down. I want to have braids. Maybe I do want to be in Jordans one day. Maybe I want to be in sweatpants and a jersey. But at the same time, I want to be able to have that freedom, which I have to say, I did feel that when I was on stage performing with you. I felt there was so much freedom there, and I could sing my face off. And I'm getting emotional. I'm trying not to.
It's okay.
But I think that that's why this group happened the way it happened, because it was just so freeing. And there was just so much love and honesty with us, and our lyrics were so honest and true. And there wasn't anyone saying, you have to look like this and you have to be this way, because I didn't even show my face. I could watch the opening act before I even got on stage.
I remember I would watch you guys sit in the crowd.
And have a girl hit me and be like, excuse me. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, am I in your way? I'll see you in 10 minutes, bitch. You know, there's just something so freeing about Emotional Oranges. And I think that's why I hold it so precious, because I could really be myself.
How do you guys think you're channeling that? Because, I mean, Volume 1 did really well, especially on the touring side, back to shows being sold out, like Brooklyn Steel, and being on Lollapalooza, being on Coachella before, obviously, COVID happened. Are you guys a little nervous that you won't be able to have that freedom?
No.
How are you going to deal with it, though? You're on camera.
Right. I mean, when you bust the shit all the way down to like what it really is, it's a village of people that have a lot of the same kind of moral compass and principles, and hopefully the same taste, right? It's like, we've never done a video interview. Who better to do it with than the person that, you know, believed in us more than anybody?
I mean, you guys made it easy.
Not really. Not really. And you could talk about what that was like. That's on your own shit, but not really. And there's a lot of people that are still on board that do this, and they don't have to do this, you know, or, you know, whether it comes to managers like Brittany, you know, whether it comes to like someone who's like my best friend who has guided my eyes. If she's the ears and she's the feet, then my eyes are Brando, you know, and to be able to be in bed with people who have that bar set the same way you have it set, and they continue to edge those goalposts further and further because they see your star rising. Those are the people that you want to work with. So. Yeah,
and again, back to my original question of you guys had no features on anything, doing anything production in-house, anything artwork in-house. Just everything has been within the same circle of people since inception. Putting out an EP now that's all features, doing actual interviews on camera, showing your face in the Down to Miami video like the entire time.
Right.
Doing actual press runs, like things are changing in a complete 180. Is that something that you're planning to do, or you just think it's time to do that? And why did you even want to work with other artists at this point? You could have went J. Cole, no features for the rest of your life.
Yo, love the J. Cole. I mean, when you look at her and, you know, and you look at the team, I got an ego. We're trying to like put our flag in the ground I think the people that we work with are best in class. I think these songs deserve to be heard. And I want to make sure our little 2 sentences in the history books, 200 years from now, are written in etched in stone. So, if not now, then when?
I also think we're just getting started. I don't think they've seen anything yet.
I'm with you.
I mean, we showed our faces a little bit in Miami, but maybe in the next video we don't. I don't think there's any rules to it. I don't think we have to reveal anything. I think this is who we are. If they wanted to see us, they came to our show. They saw us. And now we continue to be creative because that's who we are. We're artists.
You got Vince on the project with us. You got Kiana, you got They, you got Channel, you got Yanni.
Yandri.
You got Yandri. These are fucking tight-ass people
Becky
who aren't
G.
charging, Becky G, who aren't charging for these videos you talk about, who actually believe in the same shit. And who would have thought? Who would have fucking thunk?
Yeah, in the midst of the TikTok era, that she's like, nah, I just want to do this.
Yeah, I love her.
I just fuck with y'all.
I really love her.
And Vince too. Nah, I just fuck with this record. Let me hop on this. You don't need to give me anything.
Shit is crazy.
What was that like performing at venues like Fonda and Brooklyn Steel, even though it is a new venue, is a huge venue in New York now, doing the pop-up at Bowery Ballroom, which I saw Frank Ocean there for the first time in Bowery Ballroom. What was that like performing in these venues that you guys grew up going into to watch your favorite artists?
That shit is nuts. I actually opened for Kendrick like a few years before our headline date.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, it's crazy to think back on, but to have those 10 toes on the ground and to be able to work with someone like V, who, I mean, she can tell the story better than I can, but we feel very connected. We feel of the people. And I think it's important that they hear that.
I think the craziest thing was that my mom got to come to see me perform.
My mom too.
Yes.
Our moms stood together.
They did. And my mom was inviting people backstage. I'm like, Ma, it's not like that now. But I think just having the chance to invite my mom to a show, man, that was so cool. And just to see people in my city and be able to invite some of my friends and just connect with fans from my hometown was like, honestly, it was a dream come true.
Did it kind of put all the, hey mom, I can't come back for Christmas, what are you doing out there? Like, is this a waste of time type of view in perspective?
Yeah,
like,
she was shocked.
Like this
she
is
said,
this is
I
what I
had
was
no
working
idea
for.
people know you. She was literally sitting there and they're like, V. And she goes, who's V? I'm like, that's me, Mom. They're talking about me. She still didn't believe it when she went to see the billboard. She's like, hold on. This is real? Like, this is really happening? This is why I didn't come home for so many holidays. And
You got to give the people some fucking context, because I feel like, I mean, you're being very humble about it, but I saw you coming from work to the studio, sometimes leaving, going back to work, right? And then meeting me in the morning for rehearsal. I think they need to hear those. They need to hear those stories. That's important. You taught me something that I've never seen before. I never knew what it, like the art of stage is something that's fucking foreign to me and a lot of people. I think they think they know, but they have absolutely no idea.
Yeah, I mean, performing is where I actually live. I feel like all the other dimensions are just motions. I do still have a job. I still work at a bar. And it is a little weird when you're selling out Brooklyn Steel and then a week later you're at your job and some girl is yelling at you because her margarita isn't skinny enough. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
Wait,
You know what I did yesterday?
I'm sorry. What? But I think it's also very humbling, and it makes me appreciate the stage so much, and it makes me appreciate the fans so much.
It makes me appreciate the dedication, because you could see someone sell out a 3,000 cap venue or do a festival stage, do anything like that. this is a long game with this type of shit. You still may have to have another job within this type of business.
Well, wasn't Clark Kent still Clark Kent after he was Superman?
Mm-hmm.
Shit.
So I really do feel like one of my superpowers is working my ass off.
Yeah. Like,
I
do you
don't
really
think-
want this shit? That's anytime I've talked to any artist, like, I have to figure out if you really want this shit. Specifically of what Via just said, like, yeah, no, I went from rehearsals to selling at a show, and then I went back to my job, because this is just what you need to do to actually make it. You selling out a venue don't mean shit yet.
It really doesn't.
If you really want this shit, you'd give up right then. Like, all right,
But
well, I sold out
will-
Brooklyn Steel, and I'm still working. Fuck this.
But I will say, like, yo, dream as hard as you can and always work. Because just because you're working that late night, pulling in those late hours, you think nobody sees you, yo, somebody sees you and somebody feels you. And I feel like I wish that the 15-year-old me who was washing dishes had a glimpse of what I feel now, so she would never have a moment of crying after work or feeling like giving up, because I had so many nights where I was like, what am I doing? I should just be a dentist.
But I mean, it takes those little tiny moments of success that continue to add up while you're doing something you hate, that get you through the shit that you
Yeah.
hate. Like, all right, cool. We did Bowery Ballroom, which is, 300 people. All right, cool. Then we did a 500 cap room. Then we did a 800 cap room. Like, it's just little things that keep adding up, that keep you moving through the bullshit.
And fans
That-
see you.
and talk to you.
We have fans that have traveled 2,000 miles to see us. And when we meet them, it's like, yo, thank you. Like, this is why I do this. I don't need anything else. I just need to know that we feel each other and I can connect with somebody aside from myself and the girl who wants a skinny margarita. I don't want to connect with her.
Everyone's in on the emotion.
I love that.
Yeah, it's really what it is.
Can you sing this song, Rory?
That's a depressing fucking song.
Have you ever made out to our music?
No,
Really?
I haven't. And I'm a make-outer. Like, that's my shit. I like to make out.
Not even foreplay?
I don't know if I've ever
You don't listen to our music?
went to fuck. I don't know. I've always said, because I've had friends that make like real sexual R&B music. I can't fuck to it.
We don't have to fuck to our music, but at least touch a titty.
Oh, I'll do that for sure. Yeah, that's definitely happening.
Which song would you do?
I'm definitely grabbing a titty this Sundays.
I'm here for it.